Hello everyone, my name is Dr. Ramon Guerra. This is your introduction video for your online class with 4 different call numbers. Critical and Creative Thinking 8410, English 8410, Latino and Latin American Studies 8926, and Latino Latin American Studies 4926, all of them section 850. These are all the call numbers for the same course. The course is, of course, Immigration, Migration, and Diaspora, Critical Approaches and Theories of Movement in Literature, or a short title, alternatively used, Literature of Displacement. This class for spring of 2016 is going to be delivered completely online. As I mentioned, my name is Dr. Ramon Guerra. I'm from the Department of English. If you go to our Blackboard site, you can find my instructor information there, my phone number and my email, as well as my in-person office hours for this semester. I will be in Arts and Sciences Hall 189E. My office hours are listed as Monday and Wednesday, 11:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m., and Mondays from 2 to 3 p.m. I've also, for this class only, got Wednesday night online office hours, which will be hours where I am readily available by email from 7 o'clock to 8 o'clock on Wednesday evenings. I'll give you fair warning as I get into this video and some others. I've got pets and kids. They may appear in the video from time to time, uninvited by me, but we'll hopefully just deal with it as easily as we possibly can. I've already got one over here on the stairs. This video will just be your introduction to the way that the course will work, as well as sort of give you a little bit of a headline for what we've got going on this week. It's very minimal. The reading and the assignment are just to sort of get us warmed up into the way that this course will work. Next week we will begin more in earnest, heavier reading, heavier writing assignments, and a little bit more in the way of a introduction lecture to some of the things that we're going to be getting at. So what I want to do first is, if you go to our Blackboard page and you open under the Syllabus tab, there are links to both our syllabus and our schedule. We'll go through those as quickly as possible. I'm not going to read everything line by line. You can look at that on your own. I'll highlight and go through quickly a lot of the important things. The first thing you're going to see there, if you open our syllabus link, is all of the information I gave you, the course title, my office address, office hours, and email address. All of those things are current, and if you need me at any time on Monday and Wednesday, you can find me in the office most of those hours, as well as some additional, or email, especially since the course is an online course, may be the most preferable way to get a hold of me. Our course is, as I said, short-titled Literature of Displacement. Next, you've got the required text for the course. I've got 9 texts that I've selected there. When we start talking a little bit more about the terminologies of the course and what it is that the course will cover, we'll get into why I put this particular list together. But as a short description of it now, what we have is a collection of nonfiction and fiction about immigrants, migrants, refugees, all sorts of displaced peoples, mostly related to the United States and the American experience, but the class is designed to also incorporate sort of global narratives of movement, people being moved or moving on their own, and the way that this sort of reflects the human experience in literature. And of course, I try to represent this in multiple kinds of literature, from memoir to sort of fictionalized versions of an autobiographical experience, to straight-up fiction, to some sort of critical writing about the situation entire. So the literature will allow us to get at these issues of movement and displacement from a variety of different angles. You can see most of the texts that we have chosen for this course, in fact all of them are going to be from 1975 up until just earlier this year. So very, very recent, even though the phenomenon of immigration, migration, refugee status, all of that is not a recent phenomenon. After that, you'll see some suggested texts for supplemental reading. These may be your first stop when it comes to finding critical sources for your research assignments later in the semester. Just a couple of places that I would suggest beginning to look at these ideas. Certainly not an exhaustive list. Okay. Under that, you'll see the course description. Perhaps this will give you a little bit more specific description about what it is that we're going to be looking at. This course will introduce students to the U.S. experiences of displaced immigrants and migrants, noting that displacement occurs throughout the globe with similar and comparable results. Students will learn how, in both nonfiction and fiction, these depictions can generally consider the causes, patterns, reactions, and repercussions to the displaced, often as it evolves gradually over generations and is mixed with varying levels of acculturation and assimilation. Significant topics that we will examine include placelessness, cultural collusion, literacy, language acquisition, discrimination, success, rising so-called second generations, and overall identity. Undeniably, there are also a variety of political implications surrounding this issue, ranging from nativist ideologies to national security concerns that will be addressed using current news and editorial journalism to complement the existing curriculum. And that last sentence, in fact, is one of the more immediate topics that we'll be looking at. There's certainly a very current events side to this particular topic: immigration, migration, refugee status. So in fact, part of your assignment will be to incorporate any particular current events perspective and doing a little bit of research into it on your own to apply some of what we discuss in here to events throughout the world. And you'll see that a little bit down further in the syllabus. We'll keep going along. The structure there, of course, the course is all online, delivered all online, so it is necessary to have access to computer and to an internet connection. The course will run sort of on a weekly module, and you'll see what that is once the course gets going. Week 1 will be collected together, week 2 and week 3. So you can't really work at your own pace. You can't work weeks ahead, but on a week-by-week basis, you can do all the work for that week on your own pace. You'll see the boldface typing there in the second paragraph of course structure, what a typical week will look like. And it will have a reading assignment, a video lecture. Maybe some weeks might have 2 lectures. I might post one during the beginning and then maybe a little bit closer to the end of the week. Occasionally there will be something else to read that goes along with your main reading assignment. And then you'll have a weekly reading response due by Friday of that week by 8 p.m. Okay, and everything that's due like that, unless it's marked differently, will be due by Friday of that week at 8 p.m. And there'll be a place for you to submit your assignments on the Blackboard page under assignments. Okay, and you'll see information for each week will be compartmentalized in a folder under the course materials tab on Blackboard marked week 1 or week 2 and so on. Okay, and if you want to look at the details, we'll get to that in a minute, but the course schedule document details every week what we'll be doing. Okay, the next information there is a breakdown of the class requirements, and I'll leave this for you to look at more specifically. You'll see that we have really 3 main areas: the semester research project with a couple of broken down assignments in it. Then you have what I was talking about in these current event summaries or reviews. And then the third thing is your weekly reading responses. And they're weekly in name only. There's 10 of them total, so you won't have one every week. But when you look at the schedule, the next document, you'll see that it's listed, the weeks that it's due. Okay, there'll be a couple of weeks where you don't have one due. You may have a different assignment due. Okay, but looking back at the first requirement there, the semester research project is the main project for the course, and there are 3 different elements to this. Okay, the first thing is a critical text review, and this is a review essay about a research source, something that you will identify at about the midway point of the semester that you want to use as a supplementary research item in your larger project. And we'll talk about these later in a video directed specifically to your research project. But you will choose a critical text, maybe 2, probably just 1 though, that you will review. You will break it down for me. You will show me that you understand it, how you intend to use it in your longer research project, and produce a 3 to 4 page document that gives me all of this information, okay? And then I will respond and give you some guidance, etc. Okay, the next part of that semester-long research project is a detailed outline, which is due a lot later in the semester, closer towards the end, where you're going to give me 2 pages roughly of an organized structural outline of what it is that you're going to produce in your final draft paper. And then that is the third item that you will produce, which is the 10 to 12 page research paper, an elongated study of some particular aspect pertaining to any of the books that we've read or any of the current events items that we've been through, etc. Okay? And as I said, you will have a video later on that will be directed specifically towards your semester-long research project. Then you have there the description for the current events summaries. These are fairly straightforward. 2 times during the semester, you will select an article from a magazine, a newspaper, some source of current events, news coverage. It's better a lot of times to use opinion editorial types of writing for this to help you get your head around a particular perspective on an issue pertaining to immigration, migration, or refugees in the world, in the United States, and for you to sort of give me a breakdown, a summary, but also a sort of criticism, an understanding of the events that you're looking at. And those will be at 2 different points due during the semester, and you'll see them on the schedule. And then, as I said, the weekly reading responses, about 1 to 2 pages. You can read there what it is that I'm looking for in these reading responses. It's not just a summary, it's not just a reaction, but it's a way for you to sort of meaningfully recite what it is that you've gotten out of the reading for that week. You can pose questions, you could sort of try out some thoughts. These responses should be analytical. Okay, so you're going to not want to treat them like a reading journal, like just some notes. You're going to have an audience, and that audience is me. Okay, and you have places on your assignments tab on Blackboard to submit all of those things, and they all have a deadline that you can see as well. Okay, the next bit of information on the syllabus there is the grading breakdown. You see the way that everything works there. There are 1,000 total points. You can figure out the math there, the percentages divided amongst your different assignments there, 10 weekly reading assignments, 2 current events summaries, 1 critical text essay, 1 research outline, and 1 seminar research essay, which is worth 30% of your grade. Okay. After that, you've got the very detailed description of what happens if you plagiarize in this course. Okay, I'll let you read that on your own. Just understand the dire consequences that are possible, and certainly not fictitious at all. They have happened, and they have happened in more numbers than you would guess. So just be wary of those sort of things. When in doubt, ask somebody, me, the Writing Center, a fellow student, somebody who can give you some information. Excuse me for a minute. Fighting a cold, sorry. The next statement there is a statement on students with disabilities. If you have a registered disability with the disability office, I should have received notice of this already. If you need to check with me or get in touch with me about this, of course it's private information. You can always contact me, email, phone, or you can come by my office if you happen to be in Omaha and on campus. There's a statement after that about sexual misconduct that you can read. This is a relatively newer statement that we're adding to our syllabuses at the university. And then after that, the last bit on the syllabus is a plug for UNO's Writing Center. If you happen to be in Omaha and have access to campus, the Writing Center is a wonderful resource for you to use as a student in order to help with your writing. You can check out the website there. Just know that their primary purpose is to help you rather than to quote-unquote edit or correct your writing. So they want to have you there with them. You don't just drop it off and pick it up later like an oil change for your car or anything. So there's a plug for them as well. And this is staffed by English department students and faculty who have expertise in this area and will be glad to help you with anything, and not just for English writing as well. So if you have essays or resumes or other things that you would like help with, they'd be glad to give you some guidance. Okay. The next thing I then want to have you look at is the schedule, which is also in that syllabus tab on Blackboard. It is fairly straightforward. I'll just highlight a couple of things so you know what it is that you'll be looking at every week. First of all, there's a statement there that says, I don't plan on it, but should it be necessary, I reserve the right to alter the syllabus and or the course schedule at any time. With an online class, we have a little bit more flexibility in terms of, snow days and all that kind of stuff. But if we need to ever move something around, I will give you fair notice, and you will have access to the information long before any major changes do. So I will let the phone ring in the background. Hope it doesn't bother you. The note after that is the page numbers listed here are from the editions available for purchase at the university bookstore. If you have a different edition and you're really off on the pages or something doesn't look right or all that, check with me to see where you should read for each assigned period. Most of the times we're reading about halfway through, or there are some weeks where we just read the entire book anyway, so it won't often make a lot of difference. Okay. After that, if you just sort of scroll down, you'll see that there are numbers for each week. We go all the way through week 16, which is actually dead week or prep week. And you'll see that you are off that week. You have no new assignments that week. It's a week devoted specifically to your research and final writing days. And hopefully by that time you're not just trying to write your entire essay. You're working with something already started. But if you go back up to the top and you look, for instance, at week 1, which begins January 11th and goes through January 15th, you'll see what we're going to be doing this week. You have a video, which is the video you're watching. We're introducing the syllabus. We're sort of going over the map of the course. And I've talked a little bit about terminology and haven't really gotten to theories yet, but we'll get to that later. And just sort of an introduction, as I said, not really a full-on jumping in just yet as we get everybody registered and ready to go for the course. After that, you'll see what it is that you need to read for this week. Appendices 1 through 3, and Mary Pfeiffer's the middle of everywhere, 353 to 365. Okay, if you have different page numbers, you just find appendices 1 through 3. And what it is it's some questions, a list of things that Mary Pfeiffer, the author of this book, put together, as well as the Universal Declaration for Human Rights, which is a fascinating read, something you've probably heard reference to, but maybe not been through yourself and don't even know what it is that it declares. I, for one, upon stumbling upon it in the back of her book, I was not familiar with it. It's an interesting read, and perhaps something that we should all sort of reconsider whether or not the United States or we as individuals sort of always have this notion in the back of our minds that we do, but we don't necessarily follow through on. What's the word I'm looking for? Technical at some points, maybe a little bit repetitive, but it's also meant to be sort of a guidance document in terms of policy, legal policies throughout the world and throughout the United States. So you will then write your first reading response based on your reading of these 3 appendices in the back of Mary Piper's book. And when you go to your reading response, you'll want to ask yourself some questions about what it is that you read. How can you talk about these things in an educated way? How can you analyze what it is? And perhaps what might be helpful is to understand that we're going to begin next week at the beginning of Mary Piper's book, The Middle of Everywhere. Excuse me again. Piper is writing this book about refugees specifically. And when we talk about the differentiation between refugees and immigrants at large, we understand that there are certain hair-splitting technicalities, but also some major differences in terms of what it is that refugees have in their minds as they move, as they leave their homelands, as they seek asylum, and as they seek permanent settlement in other places. And Piper's book is a wonderful place for us to start because, number one, it directs us very specifically to a region that I'm assuming many of you, though not all of you, being an online class, I don't know where you all are, many of you are familiar with the Midwest and Nebraska and perhaps even Lincoln, my hometown, specifically. And Piper directs her book directly into that setting. She is a Lincoln native, and she is an academic from Lincoln who has written for years. And this book, in fact, is a little older at this point, but she is addressing the sort of melting pot, the myth of the melting pot, and the way that we deal with different cultures in Lincoln, Nebraska, and in the United States at large. And so you might ask yourself in your reading response, understanding one of the things that she mentions in her appendix is understanding what it is to be a cultural broker. Hi, Leo. Understanding what it is to be a cultural broker and how we can understand better displaced peoples, okay, and what they're going through. Things, not just the sort of Hollywood-esque fish out of water elements of their story, but also much more dramatic and maybe not so visible or observable differences. And she gets at this, and even if you just read the appendix without ever reading the book, which is not our case, you'll understand through some of her questions how we begin to recognize our own privilege and our own perspective. And that's sort of what her questions are getting at. Okay, so that might be an example of how you get into writing your first reading response to those appendices. Okay, and then next week when we begin looking at the large portion of her book, including the foreword and everything, you'll have this sort of foundation for understanding what it is that Piper is doing. And that's why we're going to put this appendix and the book itself right at the beginning of our class, so we can understand what it means to be a refugee. Leo, are you going to wave? What it means to be a refugee, an immigrant, somebody forced out of their home, somebody looking for opportunity, somebody wanting to be back in their home, but understanding all of the implications that go along with that, facing hardships, facing certain insecurities, etc. Leo, just say hi and then you've got to go. Okay, go on. Comic relief. See if I can get your attention back now. Facing all of these things while trying to understand their new environment. And this is where Piper and that sort of cultural broker mentality inserts itself. Next week on the video, specifically about her book, there's some questions that I want to pose, maybe even some criticisms about this particular approach, but I'll save that for then. Okay. I think that's enough for this first week. There may be a video a little bit later this week, maybe sort of elaborating on what it is that I want you to get at in this first reading response, having to do with the Declaration of Human Rights. We can certainly look at our own current situation and understand that the world that Pfeiffer was writing this book in, which is, as an aside, right around the time of the 9/11/2001 attacks, and she makes mention of that. The world is a little bit different, but not all that different than the one that she's representing here in this book. I'll leave it at that for now. If you have any questions in the meantime, feel free to email me, to give me a call, or pop by my office. I'll look forward to hearing from any of you, and I look forward to this semester. Thank you very much.